I'm Thom Dennis, CEO of Serenity in Leadership. We are premier conflict resolution, culture integration, and change makers. We help businesses overcome challenges and achieve successful, lasting outcomes, whilst always putting their people at the heart of the business. So today, I'm delighted to welcome Christina Courtright Jenkins, who is the creator of Embody Your Essence, specializing in helping clients uncover and align their personal brand, an international speaker, soon to be published author, and much more, as we'll see. Christina, welcome.
Thank you, Thom. It's really a pleasure to be here. And I love how you said putting people at the heart of the business. Beautiful.
Thank you. Well, this morning I was having a conversation. So a little while ago, I did Scylla Elworthy's program called The Mighty Heart. And there's a couple of us who were in the same triad, and we've been meeting. And my goodness, it's months since the end of the course, but we've each gone our own way. But just to get in touch back with the heart, you really feel it.
Sure.
And I think with the challenges that people are having, the heart is just so, being in touch with one's heart.
Agreed.
So
Absolutely.
let me ask you, is there anything you can't do?
Well, Thom, I don't play sports that involve a ball of any kind, ever.
Because you began your entrepreneurial journey at the age of 5, and you've basically never stopped. You have a master's degree from HEC Paris in innovation and entrepreneurship. You were a semi-finalist for the Grammy Music Educator of the Year. You're a Reiki master, feng shui practitioner, medicine woman. You've got 4 children. You've got multiple businesses. And I'm frightened to ask how many instruments you play. So how do you manage it all?
That is a good question. When I read my resume, my CV, I always think, how do I manage it all? I know that seems, and I'll tell you, up until really recently, I think I've managed it really well. I've just been able to compartmentalize, and my highest value is learning. I'm just a voracious reader. I love to learn. And when I say learn, like, I like to dive deep into whatever the topic is at hand. And so as I've learned things, some things I have decided to then turn into a business. And then, like we were talking just a little bit before the show, whatever happened in March of 2022, I just went, I got to slow down. I've been running my whole life. And the universe has been throwing up, these stop signs and everything to saying, hey, slow down, Christina, slow down. But I didn't really know how until, like, not just a stop sign, but like this barrier that said, Christina, slow down. And it felt really rough. And I have been able to realize a lot of value attachments I have for myself tied up in that aspect of productivity. Now, don't get me wrong. I think I've enjoyed being productive. I've done a lot of things, and realizing how much value attachment I actually had to productivity. So how do I do it all? Well, I don't do as much now. I've slowed down the last few months and lean on the structures, the things that I have built and that I have learned. And in answer to your question, I play a lot of instruments, but I'm really good at a few of them.
So what's your favorite?
Well, I'm a cellist. That is my primary instrument, is cello, and I taught orchestra for 12 years in the U.S. public school system. I taught from 11 years old to 18 years old, and so violin, viola, cello, string bass, those are my primary instruments. And I also play piano, of course. Every good musician plays piano too, because
So I suppose many of us have different talents and are wearing many hats. So why is it important to bring this all together, and how can we do it without losing our way or feel like we're constantly multitasking? and in that way tipping the balance into poor health?
Yes. That's the real question. We're all wearing a lot of hats. And a lot of the hats that we're wearing out of obligation. We're wearing because we think we should do that. We're wearing it because we think that that's the next step in our life, or we're wearing that because that's what's going to, get us where we're going. And I think that that's what actually leads to poor health, is this idea that I have to wear this hat because this is the right thing to do, or the next step. And so really tapping into that place in yourself, really looking and understanding, what is my motivation or my inspiration? I think motivation is from the outside, and it definitely has a place, but where's my inspiration coming from? What is inspiring me to do this? And I think that when you live from that space primarily of inspiration, it can add to excellent health instead of taking away and giving us more poor health. And so what do I think? I think that people are getting stuck in their to-do list, stuck in this idea that if I don't produce a certain number of dollars or a certain number of whatever in a given time period, then I'm not contributing to the world. And in our Western society, my goodness, if you're not a contributor to the world, like that's the worst thing, right? Like we want to be upstanding, we want to add value, we want to do all these things. And so we're doing a lot of it out of obligation. And that's what I think leads to that poor health. That's what leads us to be out of balance. And in our industrialized world, it's super easy to go into that. And I think that we see that in increasing numbers of poor health, despite the fact that at this point in the evolution of humanity, we should have the best health ever of all time. And yet we don't, because we're driven by obligation, profits before people, and attachment to productivity.
You talk about how often nothing is missing from our lives, but instead that things are hidden, which is really interesting and presumably means self-reflection is really important. Tell us more about that.
Yes, I think that self-reflection is, it is possibly the most important thing that we do, because I believe that we have everything that we need already within us. And when we come to this planet, immediately things start getting piled on, different systems, beliefs, our programming, the culture, all these things. And so then we start to wonder, where do I fit in? Where am I in this? And so this idea of self-reflection helps one realize that there really is nothing missing. I mean, I talked about at the beginning how I don't play sports that involve a ball. So I could see that that is something that's missing from my life. And yet, if that was something that was important to me, that was something that was part of my experience here on the planet, it would be within me. I do believe in, from experience, including dealing with near death and serious sickness in my family. Sometimes people will say, Christina, how do you do that? And I say, I don't know. But somehow it's inside me to do this thing. And I believe it's inside everybody. I don't think I'm special in that. I don't think I'm unique in that. I think that whatever gets put in front of us, we have what's inside us to get through that, to learn from it, to evolve from it. And that includes our essence brand, which our essence is that innermost part, that golden light in our heart. And as we peel back the layers around that, we will discover more and more what's in us, our purpose, how we add value to humanity, what is our experience like on this planet, and how do we help humanity move forward. So that's, I hope that answered your question. I don't think anything is missing from anyone, but we do have to look for it and uncover it.
It's funny, I'm still thinking back to your, not that last answer, but the answer before, when you were sort of drawing the comparison between inspiration and motivation. And it was interesting because you used the word inspiration as sort of coming from within. And yet the word inspiration actually talk to me about breathing in. And
Yep.
and I actually noticed that I was more consciously breathing when you were talking about that, and how important breath and just, I suppose, being more deeply in touch with oneself, which then comes back to the idea of this self-reflection, how important that is. What do you think?
I absolutely agree. And that's part of the word why I love the word inspire, is because it brings you into this space where it's you. You are inspiring. Every time I breathe, I'm inspiring. And anything outside of that can be motivating. It can be a driver, it can be a push or a pull, whereas that inspiration, that inspire, is just right here within us where there's nothing missing. I have a mentor and she says the depth to which you breathe equals the depth to which you can receive. So I often think about that when I catch myself getting all worked up and I realize that my breath is shallow.
Yes.
But that one breath, that just creates that space. Like what Viktor Frankl talks about, how there's that space between stimulus and response.
Yeah.
That breath can create that space that can literally determine the outcome of the world, or at least your world, with just that breath.
I sometimes think the breathing actually is the secret to everything.
Well, I mean, yes, absolutely. And I absolutely think so. And we look at these philosophies that are all around breath, especially in the Eastern world, that this breath is so important. How have we forgotten this, Thom? How have we gotten so out of touch with ourselves that something as basic to life as breath? I mean, a baby in many instances isn't even considered to actually be alive until it takes its first breath. It's like, that's life. Yeah, we've gotten so far away from it. And I'm so, I feel a great immense amount of relief that there's so many options for learning and becoming more aware of that are available to us now, that even 10 or 15 years ago, that it just wasn't as available. So that's beautiful that people are catching on to this.
Yes. One of my teachers, he says that if you look at all the old traditions, they've all got their opinions about this, that, and the other. But the one thing, just the one thing that they agree about is the importance of breathing.
Yes, I like that.
So one of your specialisms is personal brand. Does everybody need a personal brand?
Well, here's the secret, Thom. Everybody has a personal brand. Every single person. It doesn't matter what role you're playing in this world. It doesn't matter if you're an entrepreneur, a teacher, a parent, and everyone has a personal brand. The question is are you creating that? Or I don't even like to use the word create, but I use it sometimes just for understanding. Are you uncovering what your essence is and that becomes your personal brand? Or is what you're putting out there out of alignment because you've got your essence that's going to shine through no matter what? And then you've got all these roles. So let me give you an example. In your personal brand, you can do anything. So one of the things that you asked me is, how do I do all these things, like all these different businesses, and I have these different things that I do, but there's one commonality, and that's what I bring to that. So that's my essence brand. So for 12 years, like I said, I was a teacher in the public school system, and it's where I actually did a lot of the uncovering of this work that I do now, whether it was with students or with myself, and realized that if I would have stepped into this teacher role, and tried to make being this music teacher my brand, and then looked out there at what these other templates are of what does a music teacher look like, sound like, feel like, what's interacting with this music teacher like, and taken on this shelf brand, so to speak, the brand of or role of a teacher, my success, and more importantly, my level of personal fulfillment and satisfaction, which trickle down leadership, right, goes down everywhere, just wouldn't have been there at all, because I would have been trying to fill someone else's brand, a brand that was assigned to me. And I see this a lot with healers. So when there's a healer, there's this persona. Like when I say healer, people in their mind come up with whatever their own version of healer is. And so I see a lot of people in the healing field that think that they need to be all zen all the time, and that that's part of this healing thing. So I have this client, and she does not look like your typical healer at all. Nor does she talk like one, act like one. Her energy is really big and fiery. And she's one of the most powerful healers that I know. Once she stopped trying to be all zen all the time, because that's not her. Yeah. And so everyone has a personal brand. The question is it reflecting your essence? And if it's not, it feels out of alignment. You're attracting the wrong people to you. You feel unsatisfied and burnt out because of the obligation of trying to fill a template that just might not fit you.
Yeah. Conditioning.
Very much so. That's the work right there, huh?
I think for many people that's what the midlife crisis is actually waking up and saying, who am I, as opposed to who have I been whilst I've been conforming to all the ideas and thoughts and beliefs and values of all the people around me.
I 100% agree. In fact, that's where I kind of started in this, was helping people through kind of that midlife transition, which can feel like a personal crisis and can certainly feel like a crisis to everybody who does not want you to change and become who you really are. That's threatening to people sometimes, especially somebody who still wants to stay in this conditioned structure. Like it really does feel like a crisis. So you're absolutely right. I think that's exactly what a midlife crisis is. It's coming to the point where you don't want to do the thing anymore that you've always done, because it just doesn't fit anymore. It's like I don't know if you've ever done any gardening. I do a lot of gardening, and when I plant something, it's going to get root bound in the pot. And that's kind of what happens. And finally, at midlife, we think, I'm going to die in this pot, or I got to get out of this pot. So 100%.
Yeah, which of course comes back to the whole thing about self-awareness and being aware and being open to exploring oneself in this way, as opposed to just carrying kind of blindly on. So
and can I say one more thing about midlife crisis?
Yeah, do.
So I think that when people get to the point of a midlife crisis, there's a few ways to navigate through that. And we see different examples. Like we see people who kind of explore out and then it feels too dangerous for whatever reason. So they go right back how they were. And I see people who choose to do that. They get old fast. And I don't like, aging is just a part of life, but you don't have to get old. Yeah. And so I see that. And then these people that are just like, I'm done. And they explode out of the pot, and it causes a lot of collateral damage. And then we have people that through this reflection, through breath, through getting mentors, through navigating through this in a conscious way, this consciousness, they can gracefully move through it, and it becomes a beautiful transition. Like, it's like when a chick tries to get itself out, like if you try to help a chick out of an egg too early, it doesn't work very well. Or you try to get the butterfly out of the cocoon too early, it doesn't work very well. Whereas if you just let it go and you have this consciousness, and you let nature take its path inside us, it's going to flow and you get to become who you really are. And the great thing about the second half of life is you really stop caring what people think and you just get to be you. And it's so amazing and beautiful.
If you allow yourself. Yeah. And not everybody does. But when it's right, it is beautiful, as you say. Yeah.
And I would love to see more people understand and have awareness around and more examples of what does it look like to do that.
Yeah.
I think we would live a lot longer, be a lot healthier, and the planet in every aspect would just up level significantly.
Well, that's what we're hoping is going to happen, isn't it?
Absolutely.
Right now, in these next couple of years, I think that the planet and the people on it are struggling out of their chrysalis now.
Yes.
So at Serenity in Leadership, we often talk to our clients about the importance of mentorship. Is this something you encourage your clients to both seek and offer too?
Yes. And I can't say enough good things about mentorship, coaching, whatever that looks like for you. I'm a huge fan of hiring coaches. At any given time, I have a couple. And like I've talked about earlier, having someone, so when we think about the word coach, have you ever wondered why the word coach is the same as the word coach, meaning like a horse-drawn carriage? It's because it takes you from one place to another. And that's what a good coach does for you, is it helps guide you from where you are to where you want to be. And so, and mentorship, that's another really beautiful word. In fact, I actually prefer it over coaching, but coaching is a super buzzy word. So, and I love that metaphor of a coach takes you where you want to be. And so not only do I encourage it, I think that it is vital, like we were talking about earlier, to really move through. If you can learn from what somebody else has done, then you get to skip a lot of those bumps, or at least know the way around it, so you're not reinventing the wheel. And I think that as we do that, humanity will just continue to improve because we get to build upon what people have already done. So I think that it's absolutely important. I also always tell my clients, I hope that, after a certain period of time or whatever we have working together, that we become friends and you seek a different coach, because there's going to come a time where I've taken you where I can take you. And at that point, we're friends, and you need to find someone else to take you further down the path. There's not a one-way coach that takes you everywhere you want to be. That's impossible. And so honestly, one of my pet peeves is when I hear about these coaches that have these clients for years and years and years, I'm thinking to myself, are they not making progress? From my viewpoint and what I do, I'm trying to work my way out of a job. And when I've worked my way out of a job with a client, because we've come to a place where I can't guide them anymore because they have figured out more about them and they know a different place that they want to go. Awesome. I'm going to help you find a coach to get where you want to go. And then I hope the same thing happens and that you get to do your journey of life, your life curriculum, exactly the way you want to do it.
Yeah.
That was a long answer to, yeah, I believe in mentorship and I do it. Receiving and giving.
So many of us in the business world struggle between the expectations that are put on us, knowing how to listen to our gut instinct, and choosing what is right with integrity. Why is that such a struggle at the moment for leaders, do you think?
So I have actually given a great deal of thought about this as I see some of the direction of business leaders, of business generally in the world, and particularly in the United States of America. I think that it's because at some point we decided that shareholders and profit are more important than the people that we serve. Now, I'm not saying everybody. In fact, I don't even think a majority. I just think that this is the overriding. This is what gets taught to us. This is what gets taught to us in business school. And so we have this very out of alignment model of business, and then our heart's telling us to do something else. In my case, slow down. And I'll tell you, I had all sorts of story going around about that. Well, if I slow down, what will happen? I won't be making money. How will I do this? How, all these how will. And so we have this battle going on between what is the model that has been taught to us as long as I can remember, and the model that we're moving into, Thom. I hope we're moving into a model again where it's people driven, where it is inspiration driven instead of profit driven. And so it's a struggle because you're fighting against yourself or whatever the leader is fighting against, between what they think is right and what they've learned is right. And we haven't been taught to sink into ourselves. Instead, we've been taught to ask authority, ask a question, ask your board, ask whoever, and then come up with these opinions and then put something together. And it might be completely out of alignment for you. So how in the world, if you keep denying your essence, compass, as I call it, intuition is a big part of that. If you keep denying that, if you keep pushing against that, how in the world will we listen to it? And I think that that's a big piece that's missing from definitely corporate, and I think it's a big problem for small business owners. Again, it goes back to the brand. What kind of a brand are you wearing? Are you wearing one off the shelf of some big, CEO, or are you wearing your own brand? Are you reflecting your own brand and doing what's right for you and your business and believing that that is then going to attract the perfect client to you? And I have had multiple experiences with my clients, but that's exactly what happens.
What we're talking about here is purpose, really, isn't it? And what is our purpose? And I think there's much more demand from particularly young people when they work or they're considering working for an organization to say, what do you stand for? Why are you in business? Because you might have been taught at business school that it's all about the shareholder. It's all about making profit for shareholders. Actually, that's not good enough. It's not enough for me. I want you to make enough money so you can pay me reasonably, but I want to feel like I am adding value in some way. And somebody who I followed a lot since I first met her a couple of years ago is Clover Hogan, who's a very young activist, and her focus is on eco-anxiety and how young people are really anxious about their futures because they can't see how it's all going to work out. And one of the things that she highlighted, in her view, every organization needs to have as part of its purpose an element that says, what are we doing to mitigate climate change? Every single organization, whatever it is, wherever you are. And I love that. I love that because it's, and I'd really like that to be sort of really getting off the ground and people really engaging with that, because I certainly in my experience, sort of the 25-year-olds and younger, just they want to believe in something, and they want the organization they work for to have some greater purpose.
Absolutely, yes. And I think they want it to be real, not something that they slap on the wall to make themselves feel better.
Yeah,
they want it to be real.
Yeah,
that's what young people want. They want to be a part of something bigger, and they want it to be real, and they are absolutely willing in many cases to forego the wealth for the purpose.
Yes. So to wrap up, can you give our audience 2 top tips on finding their true purpose?
Yes, absolutely. So one of them is what we talked about earlier, and that's just stillness. Really getting to know you in the silence, your heart, hearing it, listening to it, trusting it. I think that that's the start. And then I actually have two. So we got to start with that. Otherwise, the other two don't really work that well. So taking that stillness. And then in that stillness, in that breath, ask yourself, how have I recovered from burnout or some of the other symptoms of burnout? Because the way that we recover can direct the way to what our purpose is. And I'll give you an example. So in my burnout, where have I turned back to? I've turned back to all the metaphysical stuff that I've studied over the years. I'm incorporating that more and more into my business practices because it lights me up, because it fulfills me. So how do you recover from burnout? There's a good indicator of what your purpose is. And the other thing is to look for your wound. We all come to this planet with some kind of a wound, whether we came and then it was exacerbated, or sometimes it happens here. So what is your wound? Robin Roberts coined the phrase, make your mess your message. What is your wound? When we have that wound, we have true compassion for people. There's a big difference between empathy, sympathy, pity, and compassion. Compassion is when you actually have your own experience for how it feels to, and then name the wound. And so we, with that wound, have the power through compassion to truly find our purpose. And I think all of our purpose, no matter what it is something to help humanity. Everything we do is here for the collective and for us personally. And so I think that that's how you can find your purpose through those two things, is take your breath, discover what you do to recover from burnout, and find out what your wound is. And instead of hiding that wound in shame, saying, what can I do to bring healing or wholeness to the world around this wound?
I wonder whether everybody understands what you mean by what's your wound.
Okay. So your wound is it's the one thing that if you had it would make all the difference. Now, I'm going to can I talk about mythology here for a second?
Mm-hmm.
So Chiron, the Greek god who trained the heroes, right? He had a few wounds. First of all, he had the abandonment wound from his parents. So he had abandonment wound. So what did he do? He went and he took in all these, not just future heroes, but also orphans and homeless. And he took them in and gave them a home and a place to belong, which is the wound that he had because he was abandoned by his parents. Then he gets injured with a poison arrow, and he goes all over the world trying to find out how to heal this wound that he has. And he never is able to heal it. But what does he do? He becomes one of the most knowledgeable about medicine, and he heals other people. So this is what I mean by the wound. Robin Roberts talks about when she got breast cancer, she became a huge advocate for breast cancer and became really a spokesperson for having women find out their risks and mitigate those risks. That became her purpose because of her wound with this breast cancer. Mm-hmm. My personal wound is I've never felt like I was enough. So many of those things that you mentioned earlier in the podcast, Thom, were things I was doing to try and fill my hole, because I felt like if I just got this next thing, if I just learned this next thing, if I just could produce this next thing, then I could fill that hole of just not being enough. Until I figured out that that's my wound. I know how it feels to not feel like you're enough. And I don't want anybody to feel like that. Will it ever heal? I don't know. I do things. I believe things. I take action to work around that. But what I do know is that I have been able to influence other people to not have that wound and to heal that wound, or do what I do, which is do the workarounds and be aware of it, that conscious awareness all the time, so that when you start to feel that way, you can have a different pattern than what's been. So I hope that that explained what your wound is.
Yeah, I think it's much clearer. Thank you.
Thank you for asking.
And so we are, we're at the end. Christina, it's been really fascinating and uplifting to speak with you, and thank you. I'm really left again with this sense of the importance of breath. And I think you talked about stillness, and for me that links very much into the word presence, and I think that's a real attribute of leadership for the future is presence, being fully present. And of course, with all our gadgets that are trying to draw us away, draw our attention, being present with someone else is very, it can be very difficult.
Yes.
Depends how disciplined one is to a degree.
Well, there are more things than ever vying for that attention of our presence, but it has been fun and enlightening and uplifting and inspiring to be present with you during the last little bit of time. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I don't know, I'm moved, and I'm really happy we had this conversation. So, oh yeah, I know. And have a wonderful day tomorrow. Happy birthday.
Thank you so much. The big 5-0. Thank you so much. Summer solstice, my favorite day of the year.
Amazing. Yes. Okay.
So, all right. Thank you, Thom.
Take care.
Bye.